Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. So I am Terry Lawler. I am the Executive Director of New York Women in Film and Television. And just to tell you a little bit about us, we have 22 members in the New York City area, and we're part of a network of women in film chapters with 10,000 members worldwide. And we do workshops and seminars. We give grants to women filmmakers. We preserve women's films. And most importantly, we advocate for equality for women in the business. So if you're not a member, you should be. Men and women can join, as was said. So, I'll see you after if you want to talk about it. Just had to do that part of my job. I wanted to start with each of you telling us a little bit about your background, and then Josh telling us about the company and how it's structured and what it does, all the many things it does, and Rebecca, you telling us how you got to the company and your career path through the company.
Cool.
You want to go first? Oh.
Sure. Well, we're a management and production company. We make feature films. We manage talent, which is writers, directors, and actors, and we make television commercials. And television commercials are sort of and management are the financial engine of the company, which allows us to sort of get involved in film and television and now theater projects that we love and care about, and we do not have to be beholden to the bottom line on every project. So really what we're able to do is work on projects we really love. And it's a small company. We're sort of New York based. We've been around since 1995. We started with a project called the United States of Poetry, where we had everybody from poets, the Poets Laureate, to hip hop people, to Lou Reed and Leonard Cohen and Johnny Depp and all sorts of people, and it evolved, developed relationships with spoken word artists, began to manage them, began to work with different directors doing the poetry films, and then sort of got into features and sort of ended up where we are now about 10 years ago, and have been growing. And as I said, now we're entering into theater as well, and television, more television stuff. And I will kick it over to Rebecca, who is our head of development, and she can talk about how she came to the company.
Cool. So I graduated college. I was a theater director and producer and a sometimes actor in college, and moved to the city and started working for The New Yorker, and then realized that I did not want to be a writer for The New Yorker, and realized that my true love was kind of in theater producing and directing and like being more kind of collaborative and creative. And actually, Josh and my dad were on a baseball team when they were 9 years old. If anybody likes baseball, Josh, we should just spend the rest of the panel talking about Josh's illustrious baseball career.
I would love to do that.
Yeah.
If anybody's interested, I have time afterwards.
So I had known Josh since I was very young. And then when I moved to the city, Josh kind of became a mentor to me. And when I realized I kind of wanted to transition into production, he said, you should really consider taking a look at Washington Square Films, and brought me in. There was an assistant position in the management division open, and he brought me in, and I interviewed, and I got the job, and I started out as an assistant to one of our managers who represents the likes of Zoe Kazan and Andrew Neal and Laura Moss, who was just one of Filmmakers' 25 New Faces of Film, and a bunch of other really cool people. And I did that for a year, and then Josh kind of felt like he wanted to start a development division, because most of the time we used to get our projects kind of only through like the relationships we had with directors. And I think that Josh was kind of ready to branch out into TV and kind of find ways to source new material. So I started working in development with one of my colleagues back there, Jared. So we're developing this theater piece that's going to be at the Public Theater. We're very excited about it, and we're developing a TV show that we're going out to pitch next week. And we have a bunch of projects that are currently in pre-production, and then some that are in earlier stages of development. And yeah, did I leave anything out?
No, it's a variety of things. She is the only person we could ever be accused of nepotism. But honestly, it was well earned. She worked her way up the honest, fair way. She had a very, very tough station at the company and handled it very nicely. and,
Thank you.
and earned her way to where she is now. You know, so.
Here.
Well, great. We're going to talk a little bit more about the company and the kind of work you do in a little bit, but wanted to get to some of the questions that about sort of developing and keeping talent and making sure that your company has the right people. So for Josh, what do you generally look for when you're hiring, either for a project or for a staff position? What are the characteristics that are important to you?
Well, there's sort of so many different elements to that. I mean, obviously, when we're talking about talent and who we're looking for in terms of talent, I mean, that just comes down to what's on the page and, you know, or what's on the screen, you know, and that really is the bottom line. I mean, to a certain degree, you know, we care about how much we like the person and what we think about the person. We would not want to work with anybody who we really can't stand. But honestly, there is leeway when it comes to being talent in the talent division. You know, there are people who I might not want to hang out with who we represent, but it's because they are talented and we believe in their careers. When it comes to hiring at Washington Square Films, you know, I have to say it's highly curated. You know, that who I work with, I want to enjoy the people I work with every day, and so I try and put together a group of people who I think are going to work well together, are going to like each other. I want it to be, you know, I want everybody to enjoy themselves and feel stimulated and excited. I also like diversity. You know, we have a diverse company, and I think that that's important. And you know, and that's really it. So I mean, yeah. So I do care a great deal about who the person is, and they don't necessarily. I'd rather take a person who I believe in and then teach them the job, such as Rebecca, you know, such as Jared, you know, and have them learn somebody who I think is a really solid person, than necessarily, oh, well, you know, my last job was at CAA, so I'll come over here. That's not important to me. What's important to me is who the person is.
And for Rebecca, what do you look for in a project to bring to the company? What keeps you motivated and fulfilled?
I think that, you know, in many ways that my answer is kind of similar to Josh. Like, I read a lot of scripts, and I watch a lot of films, and I think that for me, like, I'm drawn to things that are honest and exciting and character driven and, you know, feel like they're coming from a place of the filmmaker really needing to tell the story. I think that, like, one of the things that I find in a lot of scripts is I sometimes get to page 20 and I'm like, why are you telling this? Like, what do you feel, like, why do you feel it's important to share this story with the world? And then I oftentimes get to page 20 and I'm like, oh, this person really needs to tell this story. And I think that kind of urgent need that only comes from, like, the writer and the filmmaker's soul is like the real thing that draws me to projects.
And I can add to that. I mean, sort of, you know, as a company, we sort of built our culture based on strong individual voices. As I said, we started with the United States of Poetry and then working with spoken word artists. And it's about people who have a real perspective. And we're not making, you know, generic Hollywood films. You know, we tend to be working with talent who we meet early in their careers, who we cultivate. You know, we worked early with Kelly Reichardt, with J.C. Shandor, with Alex Ross Perry, you know, now with Nathan Silver, with a bunch of other people who maybe this is their first or second film, and we just see the talent there, and we try and develop. We also do, you know, bigger things with established talent as well. But that, I think, to a certain degree, what's always excited me, and it sort of always helped define the culture of the company.
Right, okay, so when you think, how many employees do you have?
15, 16, I mean, it's small. But I mean, we have, you know, there are a lot of people who are, you know, we have people in management divisions in LA, some of it. And, but, you know, there are a lot of people who are, I don't want to call them permalancers, but who do a lot of their work with Washington. We have our commercial division, as I said, is our financial engine, and it's very important. And we love commercials. I don't want to diminish it. You know, I mean, it's you know, because it's really important to us, and it keeps the office very lively. It keeps us right on the forefront of what's happening in filmmaking. It allows us to meet new talent, but it also just creates an energy and keeps us. We know a lot of our production people through that, so it's an important part. And so we employ a lot of people their principal employment is with Washington Square Films through the commercial division.
And do the commercial people go over to features or TV at any point?
Well, in terms of directors, many of them want to, and they try to, and we try and help them. We try and make that happen. In terms of production people, sometimes, I mean, that people, if you're in a group who are doing commercials, you don't want to lose. You're scared to, people tend to have their teams, production people, and you don't want to lose those teams for fear of being replaced. And so if you're in a group who are doing a lot of commercials, then to take 3 months off and go to a feature, you may lose your place.
And can you tell us a little bit about, this is for both of you, how the culture of the company and how the policies and your flexibility helps to keep a happy and motivated staff and make it a good place to work?
Well, I'll start this, but then I'll kick it to you because, I mean, one of the other things we try and do as a company, we try and treat employees, like their talent to a certain degree, and that that we want to keep them. And a lot of the people who work for my company have been there for 15, 20 years. I mean, a good deal of my staff have been there almost from the beginning, and it's because we try and recognize that all of these individuals have, their own ambitions, and for example, I mean, a great example again is Rebecca. I mean, Rebecca is a writer, and I will let her tell the story, but she, since she has been at Washington Square, she has been signed by CAA. She has had a nearly very successful project, but but I will let her discuss how that all took place. But in general, you want people, not always. I mean, not everybody. I don't want everybody to be ambitious. I mean, if I hire, an office manager, I want that person to be the office manager for 3 years. And so, I don't want somebody who wants to be a producer. And also in general, for staff people, I don't want people to come and say, oh, I really want to be a writer, and I know that they're going to be distracted. In Rebecca's case, she's somebody who can handle both these things and has incredible enthusiasm for both these things. But for the most part, like sometimes people in the commercial division, they want to make features, and we're developing a feature right now that came from, based on the life of the head of the sales, my head of sales in my commercial division. And
he commissioned a script, and it's actually very funny. It's a very funny script. Now we're going to make it.
And now we're going to make it.
Yeah.
And so, you never know. But you can tell your story.
I think that one of the really unique things about Washington Square Films is that, is kind of what Josh said. It's like, he really kind of has cultivated an environment where he wants his employees, like if you're not creatively fulfilled or if you're not fulfilled in your, emotional life, then like you're not going to do your best work. And Josh kind of knows that and has made it really possible for everybody, I think, at the company to feel like they can grow personally and professionally while staying a part of the company. So like for me, I had written this script, I'd optioned a book and, bought a book called How to Write a Screenplay in 21 Days and wrote a screenplay, and it wound up going into development with Annapurna for a year. And they were like, we want to do kind of a page 1 rewrite with you. And I went to Josh and I was like, listen, I know I'm an assistant and I know that I need to be at my desk, but I really feel like I have to see this through. And Josh was like, yeah, go ahead, work part-time, take a couple months and like do your creative thing and then come back and re-enter your job full time, and we'll kind of go from there. And I have so many friends in this industry, and all of us are kind of at the same stage in our careers, and not one other company, not one of my friends at any other company has had that experience. It's like truly, what do the kids say? # blessed, but like very, really, truly blessed that that Washington Square has kind of given me the opportunity to like live my creative life and also live my professional life as a development executive. But Josh does that, I think, with most of the employees. Like Jared was an assistant and said, he really wanted to go into production. He brought in a project that we got excited about. And, now we're kind of moving forward with that. And like our other colleague who is here is an intern named Tanner, and Tanner was kind of a general intern and said, you know, I really have an interest in management, and now he is the management intern. Like Josh does a really good job of kind of
Let's
like.
stop talking about me, okay? I mean, like,
No, I'm saying, no, I'm saying.
Yeah, thank you, okay.
Okay, well, fine, I won't talk about you.
I'm-
But it's a nice place to work because, you know, we have an open floor plan also, so like, it's hard to hide what's really going on in your head when like
But-
everybody's staring at you all day.
But in general,
So,
but in
yeah.
general, I'd say the lesson is, I mean, we hear a lot about, you know, the horrors of what go on in a lot of companies and, you know, and how the business has to be a certain way, and it doesn't, you know, and, you know, that there's absolutely, you know, it's a very loose and creative and kind of workshop-like environment, and, you know, and all these things you hear about, you know, screaming bosses and things like that are not necessary, and, you know,
And it doesn't end well.
it doesn't end well, yeah.
I'm gonna open it up to questions in just a couple minutes. I just have a couple more
Sure.
questions for you. What about working in New York? I'm a member of the board of the New York Production Alliance, and we try to bring and keep production here in New York, so I'm very biased about this question. Also, because the more work there is in New York, the more work for women there is in New York. But what do you think about working in New York in general? What's going on with the industry, and is this the right place to be?
Well, again, and then I'll defer to her in a minute because she is so brilliantly networked in a way that I was never able to in my career. I just was able to, you know, just really take advantage of access and the social elements which go on here. But from my perspective, you know, look, I mean, if you want to be making big-time movies or be working in big-time television, you should be in Los Angeles. I mean, that's just still where the bulk of the business is. But if you have your own vision, and, you know, or you want to, or your talent, it doesn't, you know, or you're writing scripts, you know, I just think, you know, I think New York is still a more exciting, more creative place, more diverse place. You still have, you know, most of my film friends don't work in the film business, you know, and we're informed by that. And I think I wrote in that thing that they asked me to write about, or that interview, that I'm sorry, I just lost my train of thought a little bit. We were talking about.
Having friends
Yeah, okay. Well, I guess I'll kick it to you for so I remember
Kick
more
it to
about,
me.
about in terms of what.
Yeah, I mean, what I'll say is like, I'm very biased. I love New York. I'm going to LA on Thursday for 10 days, and I have a lot of anxiety about it. I like,
Yeah.
I can stay in LA for 4 days, and then
Right.
and then I'm like, I can't be in a car anymore. But, and I love the subway. I'm like the only person that loves riding the subway, probably in this whole room. And maybe Josh too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, for me, we just had a couple in my kind of friend community of like executives and agents and whatever in New York. We just lost a couple good ones to LA, but they're sad. They regret it. They don't want to be there, really, I don't think. I think that the nice thing about being in the city is like all of my friends in the film industry, they love to read. Everyone reads The New Yorker. Everyone talks about, you know, the books that they're reading and the theater that they're seeing. And I think that in LA, I love my friends in LA. I don't mean to knock anybody, but I find that the conversations when I go out there are more about like who you know, who you had lunch with, who you're going, like whose party in the Hollywood Hills you're going to, and like that's just not the game here. You know what I mean? It's so much more about being engaged in the city and being engaged in like the intellectual life of New York. And for me, that's something that I find it's like so essential to like the health of my brain and like my soul that I just don't know. I'm not big into LA.
Well, that's that's
Sorry.
First of all, I'll go back to I remember what my chain of thought is that my point being that we being in New York, we still work with all the companies in LA. Next week we're going out and we have meetings at like a list of, you know,
Netflix, yeah.
and it's not a problem, you know, getting involved in that. But I think that the arm's length, that being in New York and having sort of the arm's length distance from it, and being able to not, you know, that we're not, you know, sort of just beholden to their whims is a very, very healthy thing. You know, I think that our creative process happens independent. Okay, well, not here's what they're looking for at HBO. You know, I think we come up with an idea and then we'll find the place to pitch it to. And they'll take our meetings. You know, and again, since we're a little bit out of it, we're a little bit exotic perhaps, you know, just because we're not the usual suspects from from LA, and I think that's a good thing. And I do think she's romanticizing New York a little bit. She grew up in Boston. I mean, I grew up in New York, and never went to a museum till I was 25 or anything like that. My friends don't read the New Yorker. I mean, we were my friends. So I mean,
Your friends like to play trivia. They do like
no,
trivia
they don't.
nights.
They don't. What are you
Trivia
talking
nights.
about? That's the last. No, that's
Maybe if you read the New Yorker more, you'd win more trivia. That's like, yeah.
No, my friends, we played basketball and baseball and things like that. It was like we dreamed of growing up in the suburbs.
Yeah.
is what we did.
Yeah.
Is the fact. So but she does it right. When you're not, a lot of the best New Yorkers are not from New York. That's
Yeah.
the case, because they're the best of their town, they're the
Yeah.
best of their city, and they come here, and my friends are just regular people who grew up here.
Yeah.
Okay, so last question from me is, for both of you, what advice do you have for candidates who are trying to further their careers? Are there steps they can take to help differentiate themselves?
Which type of careers? I mean,
Well, I think it's an open question,
Oh.
I mean, I think probably it would be great to talk about somebody who wanted to maybe join a company like
Oh,
Washington Square. What would they?
Well, I can answer that. I mean, for a senior position, I mean, it really comes down to, you have to really be bringing something to the table, which is tangible. I mean, there's not that type of growth thing. If you're going to join as a manager, or you're going to join as a salesperson, you're going to have to bring something to the table. And that, and again, when there is a fit element to it in terms of the personality being the right personality fit. But really what it comes down to is, if you're a talent manager, who's your talent? And are you going to be able to make money, and are you going to fit in? And if you're a salesperson in the commercial division, who do you know at the ad agencies and that kind of thing. For junior people who are trying to come in, I mean, just the key thing is, understanding what, not just Washington Square, but any company is looking for. The big mistake that young people come in, and they come in and they tell me what they want to do with their life. They're so used to that from college. That in college, their professors, they had all these very smart adults reading and looking at their stuff, and they forget that those people were being paid to do that. And they come in, and it's not that I'm not interested in you. In fact, we do try and cultivate your stuff. But what I want to hear is, here's the job I need filled. And so you need to understand that this is the job, that you're going to come in, even though we're going to, long term, I understand what your goals are, but short term, here's what it means to be an assistant, in the management division.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'll just say, like, our intern who's here, he's the first person in the office every morning.
Yeah.
And he is constantly, he writes how much coverage, he probably writes like 4 things of coverage a day, he reads 4 scripts a day. And then when he's done, he's like, what do you want me to take home tonight? Like, that's the kind of person,
Right.
he saves our lives all the time. And like, that's the kind of person
Right.
that I like to work with.
Well, so the other thing I would say, though, is if any people here who are, I mean, it doesn't look like there are that many so junior people here, but for people who are just starting out, know the company you're going to. Don't write, Dear Washington Square Films. It's a big difference when it's personal. When they know who we are, when they know what we're doing, when they know what the jobs are. I want to work in the movies is not a good, and I get a lot of those, I'm really smart and I went to a good college and I want to work in the movies, so just, it's much better to say, look, I see myself as a manager. I want to work my way up. You represent this talent who I like. That I'd probably respond. I'd probably pass somebody like that. I see that you represent these 3 people, and who I really like and respect. And I would like to be a manager. I understand I'm young. I want to work my way up. Can I come in for a meeting? That I would probably pass on to somebody. That kind of thing, or take that meeting myself.
Okay, do we have any questions from the audience? Okay, so we're waiting for the mic to come.
Hello.
Hi.
My question's for Rebecca. What personally do you look for in developing new material? What kind of genres and what kind of stories do you look for?
I mean, I don't think that it's fair to say that like we're genre agnostic, but we kind of are. I mean, I think that I read, like the TV show that we're developing is, I like to say that it's like Scandal meets Contagion. So it's like grounded, it's not grounded sci-fi, but it's, you know, a alternate universe where, an alternate disease-plagued universe where like people are still sleeping together. Like that is not what I would say is like a traditional Washington Square Films, like auteur-driven project. But the script was good and the writing was good and it was sharp and the writers came to me through a friend of mine and they're great guys and I love working with them and I love giving notes to them and they work hard and their project felt really unique in its approach. We're really excited about a script, or I'm really excited, Josh has to read the script tonight, but I'm really excited about a script that we read that's about like a small town, a family that was kind of broken apart and coming back together in South Carolina. And I watched the filmmaker's really small first film, and it was just beautifully done. And as I said, I think it felt like really urgent, and it felt like this is a story that he really needs to tell. And it was just kind of written in a way where it was like very lovely. It was funny and smart and sad, and it kind of hit all the right emotional beats. If I read a script and it has like a lot of spelling errors, and if it doesn't feel like if the people have a handle on structure, and if it feels like mean and cynical and like a spiteful, I read a lot of like spiteful scripts. I don't like that.
We've made a lot of movies
that are spiteful, and I don't like.
We've done a lot of those,
but those spiteful movies came from a place of like him needing to exercise his like spitefulness. I think so. I like that. Yeah, and so I think that like and what else? And we're working on a comedy right now where we do drama. We kind of do, we do everything. And we're doing a theater piece that's based on a film from the 70s. Like, it's kind of really across the board what we like.
It comes down to specialness.
Yeah.
It is just, we get literally dozens of scripts a week, and they're, this is a cross between this and this. It's a cross between, it's this meets this, just it's hard to get excited, and then every so often you find something that, and it can be tiny. I mean, sometimes we're just, we're about to embark on a tiny little film. I guess I can say what the plot is. I mean, even though it hasn't been announced yet, but just it's really about a post office being closed in rural Pennsylvania, that it just feels incredibly personal and special, and and not to mention producible, because it's small and there's good actors attached, and so it says, oh yeah, okay, perfect, and then this other thing is a giant, a giant television project where we're going to need major partners for it. So yeah, it just depends. Really, just what strikes us as special.
Thanks.
I really like what you guys had to say, and I wish there were more film companies like yours, so that's great. I'm just curious how involved you are in documentaries, and at what stage do you get involved if you are? I know you are to a degree, but now how are you?
We are, yeah, we're actually doing a documentary right now. And the answer is documentaries are a little bit tricky because, there's really not a good business model of any sort. Obviously you can sell to HBO. There are a few places you can sell to. So we've gotten involved just basically in specific cases. Like, we do work with PBS. We're doing, we have a long relationship with ITVS. We're actually doing their promos right now, which is a lot of fun. And, so we do, so if we know where the funding is going to come from, but we just don't have the time or manpower to go out and search for funding for the average documentary. Usually they're labors of love, and if we love them too, we'll try and find a way to help out, but it's rare that we get involved. It's rare that we get involved as producers. What's that? If you're not worrying about the funding, well, then I'm, it just depends what we're needed for to bring to the table. I mean, usually what documentaries need is money, and so usually there's a filmmaker who has a vision, and so we can, we did a film called Lush Life about Billy Strayhorn, who was Duke Ellington's writing partner, and really, but we had the financing from PBS. We knew and basically we helped put together the shoots. It was edited in our editing room. I act as a producer in a traditional sense of giving notes and that kind of thing, and and then it already had distribution. So that was a pretty straight ahead job. Right now we're doing a crazy little thing with Abel Ferrara, who happens to be in New York, for the film festival. And he makes these insane little documentaries, which you never know what direction they're going to go in. And I worked with Abel years ago. So they just, I guess that's more random. It's basically, I don't think we have a development plan when it comes to documentaries.
Other questions?
We have time for one more. I might actually ask one. So you mentioned, Rebecca, what you learned. Josh, have you learned anything from some of the new generation of talent that you're bringing on board? So we had an earlier panel about technology, for example, VR, AR. Have they taught you anything?
I learn things every day. I mean, it's incredible. And look, let's just be realistic. I got into the business a little bit late. In terms of it took a long time. I've only been making features film for 10, 15 years. And actually, Adrienne Weiss is here, who's a director, she actually directed the first feature film we did, which was, totally random and totally crazy. And as I've told other people here, that got into Sundance. I couldn't believe it, but that helped launch us. And so I still have sort of a lot of enthusiasm, and I feel kind of new and excited about the business.
What does your daughter say about you all?
Oh, my daughter who's grown, goes to me, you see yourself as up and coming. She sees me as in the grave, heading in the grave. And she goes, I find myself being the oldest person in the room by 20 or 25 years a lot.
That's true. It comes to all my dinner parties.
And I enjoy it. And so, so I just learn, so there's the obvious, technology gap, but there are definitely cultural differences, which are really fascinating to me and really, exciting and sometimes baffling to me, which are very stimulating and very exciting. And so, so from Rebecca and mostly a very youthful office. And so, does that answer your question, or was something more specific you were going for?
No, that answers it. I had VR and augmented reality on the brain.
I've never seen VR, and I'm.
Okay, I will give you my
yeah.
opinion. I will give you my opinion on that. We don't care.
Yeah.
We're not interested.
Yeah.
The very first thing I did, when I got out of college, I was involved in interactive video discs. And was at a company that was making interactive video discs. You can write your own ending, blah, blah, blah. And the company crashed and burned in 6 months. And I've been through CD-ROMs and DVD, and I don't care about the technology. That's just not my business. Okay. I've seen, generally when I've seen, virtual reality, I wish there was a director showing me where to look. I don't need to be looking around. That's why there's a director. Say, here, look here, boom, boom. I'm not there to be doing this. So it's not. We've done it. We've done it in the commercial division. For clients who want that, and we can produce it. It's not hard. You find somebody who technically does it, and directors enjoy playing that game. But to me, it's about storytelling. It's about vision. It's not about it's not about the technology. I'll let other people worry about that.
Are we out of time? Well, thank you to our panelists.
Thank you.
Thank you to the audience.